And this week in CIST 2531, we'll look at Chapter 11, Designing with Multiple Images. First thing we're going to talk about is creating the poster. So in this chapter, you will be working through creating a movie poster. One of the concepts we're going to talk about is unit photography. Now, unit photography is defined as a collection of images that are taken on location, usually by a professional photographer that's going to be hired by the production company for a movie set. Now, that unit photography almost always is going to include images of the lead characters. And they're going to have them photographed in costumes in front of a solid background in a photo studio. Another thing to keep in mind is sketching ideas with pencil and paper. So this is something that's a key part of coming up with concepts for your poster, for your designs in general as well. This allows you the freedom to put your ideas down without the restraints of how to get it to work in the digital environment. So it's not a good idea to skip this. It does let you kind of brainstorm your ideas and free flow them and see how they look in a sketch before you put them down and try to develop those into Photoshop. Now, another thing that will help you with your images is using the X and Y coordinates. So if you think about all of your pixels in your digital image, they're in a grid. So each one of those grids are going to be located by their distance from their point of origin. So these are going to be expressed in the terms of the X coordinate and the Y coordinate. The X coordinate is how far from the left edge the pixels is located, and the Y coordinate identifies how far from the top edge it's located. So if you see the example here with the pixels with the XY coordinate of 10 and 10, so it's going to be 10 pixels in from the left and 10 pixels down from the top. So your point of origin is going to be the top left corner. That's where your XY coordinates are going to start at 0, 0. Now you'll have a bounding box around your image. That's going to have 9 handles. So you'll have 8 that's around the perimeter, and then you'll have the center point. So these 9 locations are going to be represented in the option panel by the reference point location icon and the individual X and Y coordinates of a selected point. Now, when you use the X and Y coordinates, you use these to align the artwork on your page. So think if you have the 3 squares, and all 3 have the same Y coordinate, their top left point, for their top left point, you're going to know that those top edges are the same distance from the top of the image. So it allows you to line the images up more precisely using the XY coordinates. Also, this allows you to align copies of your artwork. So you may design a preliminary image using half-size document size or low-resolution artwork. So when you're ready to send this to finish, you're ready to increase the quality, the resolution of your artwork. So you need to resize these to the actual size at a higher resolution. So you need to replace those low resolution images with high resolution copies. I mean, we see here an example of the XY coordinates located on the option bar, and also your reference points here. And you'll see that you have the bounding box around and in the center. The next thing we're talking about is first read and second read elements. So when you're designing, it's very important to identify which elements are most important. That's your first read elements. Those are the elements that you want the viewers to notice immediately upon looking at your poster, for example, or any design. Your second read elements are a lot of times more intriguing, but they're designed to hide in plain sight. So we'll look at a poster here, and we can see this and see that some of our first read elements is the big pool party, the dates, DJs, and then you'll see some second read elements. For example, the dress code, the address, telephone, information down here, things of that nature. So next couple slides, we're going to look at ways that we can highlight the small night and the moon, how they're much brighter than they are the castle. So you want to make your viewers believe that all of these exist in the same world. So in that case, you want to make sure that the light on them must be consistent. So you'd use a levels adjustment um, to brighten the highlights on the castle and put the castle in the same world as the night and the moon. So it looks like it's all like it belongs together. So we have this integrated background. You see how we've got the layers, the different images put together. Using the adjustment layer will bring that in to where it looks like it belongs together. Now, when we create our first read elements, we want our display text to always is always a first read element of any design. So the display text is qualified as text designed to dominate the layout. Now, think of these like the headlines across the top of a newspaper or the masthead of a magazine, the name of the magazine. So you want to align that text, the brightness, the size. You want to use all that to identify first read elements. So you want your eyes to naturally go for the brightest element in the layout. So we see our eyes that naturally go for that. So you want that to be your first read element. So you want that to where it's conveyed to the viewer to say, look at me first. Once again, the alignment, the location also can convey the hierarchy as well. Now, we do have an effect, the overlay desaturation effect. Now, this is something that's achieved when you apply a hue and saturation adjustment layer to the artwork. So the hue and saturation adjustment layer then is used with the overlay blending mode. And what this does is it creates a substantial increase in contrast and vividness of color. And then you slide the saturation slider to 0. Now the result is not a black and white image. So instead, you're going to have a high contrast image that's going to have more darker, more muted colors. It's going to be more gritty or a blown out look. So when we're talking about design, and in the design world, you have the word finish. And the example they give here is that it's the way a carpenter would finish a table. He would apply the finish as the last stage to give a table a glossy sheen. So this is how we also similarly finish our artwork. So our finish stage begins when all the elements are in place. Everything is going to be sized the way it works. Color correction's been done, so every element has that good contrast and a consistent contrast and color with all the other elements. You also have all your tops in place. So now we're looking at some of the elements of this finishing stage. So we may use a flare. So the flare or some other type of similar dramatic lighting. You guys will see on your project with a sword, you'll have the flare, lens flare on the sword. The flare becomes the light source for the entire canvas. We also may use shadows. So shadows brings reality into our layered artwork. So if something's supposed to be in front of something else, then that's something that must cast a shadow onto that something else that it's in front of. Shadows, you can use those to create the depth, and it prevents your layered artwork from all appearing flat and like it's on one plane. So it gives you the realization, the realistic look for looking at depth in your artwork. Finally, the last 3 elements of the finishing stage we'll talk about is smoke. So if you have a multi-layered image, smoke can be used to integrate all of those images. So you can use smoke also to fill the holes. That's the empty areas that might be in between. Something that you don't want to cram the layout with all kinds of different objects. So you can use smoke to fill those objects, fill those holes. Also, reflections. Keep in mind, if one thing is reflecting something else, those two things must exist in the same world. So you want the same type of brightness and lighting corrected. Same thing with the physical interactions. So if one element physically interacts with the position of another, logic's going to tell the viewers that these two things exist together. Keep in mind, in your design process, you want to build everything to where it looks like it's in the same world.